Golden Bulldogs with another video, and today we will be doing a reaction to the brand new Star Theory video, and this one will be Don't Let Your Kids Watch This. So, before we get into it, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, tell us what you want us to react to next. Let's see and find out what this will be about. Also, hit the bell icon so you get notified whenever we upload Person Good and $4. 3, 2, 1. Let's see and
Children's
find out what this will be about.
Cartoons are terrifying.
Hang on. Let go.
Children's cartoons are terrifying. Beyond belief, fact, or theory.
Okay.
Hosted by Forrest Lee. Tonight, we delve into the darker side of children's entertainment. 5 theories, some real, some maybe still speculated upon, but we're 99% sure that they're also real. Can you judge which are fact and which are theory? To find out, you must enter a world of both truth and deception. A world that is beyond belief. We often take childhood for granted. It should be a time of peace and learning. But every Saturday morning when you sat down to watch those cartoons, if you peeled back the layers, even just a little bit, you may discover something truly dark underneath. But do you know what's even more terrifying? Not taking advantage of the deals at Theoryverse.store. We have a brand new winter collection, perfect for skiing the slopes or staying inside with a cup of hot cocoa. Personally, I like the Winter Lodge sweater. It's like being wrapped in an embrace of cold terror.
Okay. Nice.
No, it's actually very comfortable. But that's not all. We also have the Winter Lodge hoodie and the Winter Lodge beanie. Perfect for protecting your head from them little snowflakes falling on you. You can find all of this and more over at Theoryverse.store. And right now we're running a deal where you get 10% off thanks to the new year. But you better skedaddle, because I hear that deal's going away on December 31st. But for now, let's throw it like a snowball back over to our regularly scheduled programming. Do you think you could survive the end of the world? I definitely couldn't. But there are some who believe that the dogs in Bluey actually did. But is there any meat to that theory? Or should we just be throwing it a bone? Mom! Dad!
Okay.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory! The show that clearly has issues when it comes to kids' shows about dogs. Today,
Okay.
we're covering my new favorite show. My son's new favorite show, Bluey. For those of you who don't have a family member in the single digits in the house, Bluey is an animated TV series following the everyday adventures of a family of dogs named the Healers. You've got Bluey, her little sister Bingo, their mom Chili, and their father Bandit. Most episodes revolve around the imagination games they play, with mom and dad being absolute S-tier parents by fully committing to the bits, pretending to be a sheep, a whale, a bus that's racing out of control.
Hit the brakes! Where are the brakes? No. Ah! Rain is eating the brakes!
And because it's a show from Australia, you also get fun lines like this.
Dad, Bluey's running by the pool.
Bingo, don't be a dobber.
What?
Basically, what I'm trying to say is that I've now adopted
I watched Bluey. And it was okay. It was
skits
pretty
into
good.
my daily vocabulary. Alright, so I gotta come clean here. I watch more of the show than Ollie does. He'll go to bed and I'll watch another episode or two because each one is 8 minutes and they're all so heartwarming that you just feel good watching it. It's a nice way to end the day, but you know what that means. Me liking a show plus it having an uplift.
Yeah, it was nice watching a show that you like. Nope.
interesting message that only results in one thing: me having to tear it down with a dark, twisted theory. Call it a sign of respect, the theorist's seal of approval. But this time, someone actually beat me to the punch. Currently, there's a popular fan theory circulating that Bluey takes place in a post-human apocalypse. As the theory goes, humans were somehow wiped out, and after thousands of years, dogs evolved to become the dominant species. This initially doesn't seem that far-fetched. At first glance, the world of Bluey does feel very human, with the big difference here being that it's controlled by dogs. And this honestly aligns with other theories we've done in the past with franchises like Cars. But here on this channel, we deal with theories, not hypotheses. What do you think this is? Film-baseless speculation? Which means that we're gonna need some evidence. That's right, today we're doing ourselves a Morty. Leave your theories in the comments below. I'll pick my favorites in the next episode of Morty. Is there enough evidence to prove that Bluey's world is set in the post-apocalypse? Or is the dog domination actually telling us something else about this very family-friendly fictional world? To begin with, let's break down some of the key pieces of evidence given for the post-apocalypse theory. Number 1. In Season 1, Episode 13, Spy Games, Bluey's little sister Bingo sings the nursery rhyme, "One man went to mow."
One man went to mow a meadow. One man and a dog went to mow a meadow.
How you going in there, Bingo?
I started just doing a wee, and now it's turned into a poo.
Oh.
Notice here that the lyrics to the song are, "One man and his dog went to mow a meadow." This implies that, at some point in this universe, humans were present, and that there's some distinction between men and dogs. Point number 2, all the technology is the same. Cars, laptops, tablets, phones. This technology was left behind by the humans, and once the dogs figured out how to make it work, they then started using it for themselves. If this technology had truly originated in a dog-based society, it would look different, because dogs aren't naturally bipedal. But the fact that they're in this world seems to suggest that the dogs evolved in a way that allowed them to use human technology rather than developing it for themselves. Point number 3, the dogs, they still seem to be transitioning. In the Season 1 episode Barbecue, we meet Bluey's cousin Socks. And unlike all the other characters who walk and talk like humans, Socks is still very much a dog.
I love sausages!
Socks mostly communicates through barking. She pants, she leaves her tongue hanging out, she sits on all fours. She sometimes even growls at people and bites. Now, might assume that this is just how baby dogs work in this world, but that isn't necessarily the case. In a Season 2 episode, we see Bluey and her friends as babies, learning to toddle around on 2 feet and vocalize like humans. This implies then that dog society is still going through a transitional period, where some dogs are still starting as dogs, but others are closer in genetic makeup to the bipedal, human-like dogs that the series is known for. We even see this sort of transitional behavior coming from Bingo in Season 1, Episode 17.
Ruff, ruff, ruff.
Use your words, Bingo.
Can we have a coin for the claw thing?
Speaking of evolving, point number 4, the dogs eat chocolate.
It was nice, Dad.
Yeah, it's chocolate.
This is important because chocolate is toxic to dogs. Chocolate contains a chemical called theobromine, which dogs can't metabolize. Again, as the theory goes, dogs left to their own devices wouldn't evolve to make and consume chocolate, something that's naturally toxic to them. Instead, this is clearly something that humans made first, and then the dogs, when they inherited the earth, eventually gained the appropriate genes to consume. Point number 5, there's a dog army. In Season 2, an entire episode is
Okay.
dedicated to the dog Rusty playing an imaginary army game.
I'm playing army. I'm about to go on patrol.
Rusty's father is a military man, and he's trained his son. Throughout the episode, we hear all about drill sergeants and soldiers and privates. This tells us that the dogs are familiar with man-made military structures and the concept of war itself. Making matters even more interesting, Rusty and his dad are a breed of dog known as a Kelpie. In Australia, one of the most famous war heroes ever was a Kelpie dog named Gunner, who became famous during World War II for his ability to alert Allied forces to approaching Japanese aircraft. Because of his keen sense of hearing, he was able to differentiate between Australian aircraft and Japanese aircraft, barking when the Axis powers were coming. As such, he was able to save hundreds of lives across 60 attempted air raids. In short, not only do militaries
What
exist
time
in the
is
world of Bluey, but the dog breeds that were selected by humans to be used during wartime
Okay.
efforts are continuing to do that after human societies collapse. And finally, point number 6, there are leashes. At various points throughout the show, we see characters either using leashes or advertisements for leashes in the world around them. If this is a world without humans, why would they exist?
Okay.
Why would dogs create leashes for themselves? And why would dogs be accustomed to using them? The only possible explanation, according to the theories, is that humans made them and then left them behind when they became extinct. But the technology still lingers on to this very day. Overall, there seems to be a lot of evidence in support of this theory. A lot. But before we start breaking down the evidence, I need you to do one thing for me. I need you to go down to the comments and let me know what kids' IP you want me to cover next. Right now, I'm working on a Magic School Bus episode, but I'm between shows right now and I could use something new to watch. Thank you for all your suggestions. My
That would be nice, no cap.
nightly entertainment binges appreciate the good work that you're doing. So, now that we know our evidence, let's break it down, weakest to strongest. First, the leashes. Look carefully at how the leashes are being used in this universe. They're being used to keep track of small children. Guess what other civilization self-designed leashes to keep track of their small children? Us, humans. Treating our small young ones like untrained animals that need to be tied up is just a touchstone of any civilized society, clearly. So, while on the surface it seems like compelling evidence, in reality, it just makes humans closer to dogs than we care to admit. Speaking of silly things
That's kinda true, though.
that us elevated humans do, we also eat foods that are meant to be toxic to us. For instance, the cassava. It's a starchy root vegetable from South America that contains compounds that break down into cyanide when consumed. But humans figured out ways to prepare the dish so it could be safe to eat. You also might be familiar with fugu, the poisonous pufferfish that has to be specially prepared so its neurotoxins don't kill you. That's another one that some people are just dumb enough to eat. Intelligent creatures are just programmed to find ways to use the resources that exist around them. So it's no surprise that the Dog Society of Bluey would figure out non-toxic chocolate solutions, just like humans did for our food. Now let's talk about those lyrics. One
Yeah, that's true.
man and his dog went to mow. This one is starting to get into some tricky territory. The idea here is because Bingo says man, it means that humans existed at some point in history. And secondly, she specifies and his dog. Therefore, the man must be a human and the dog must be a dog. It's a pretty open and shut case, right? Well, I don't think so. If you look at how the characters of the show use language, I don't think this is necessarily true. Throughout Bluey, various characters are constantly saying man to each other. It's just a part of their natural language.
Hey, this princess is hard to rescue.
Okay.
This was the 80s, man. There were no helmets.
So the lyric that says that one man went to mow could still be talking about a dog. But then what would differentiate the and his dog bit? Well, I think in the Bluey verse, calling someone a dog is just how you refer to your kids. In season 1, episode 32, Bluey makes a video where she wishes for a baby. But notice the way that she talks about it.
What Spartacus wanted more than anything in the world was a puppy. Oh, my wish came true. My very own puppy.
In the world of Bluey, traditional dog words seem to be reserved for younger kids who still act like dogs. So in Bingo's song, it's literally the man is the adult dog and his dog is the man's kid. But then, what about the fact that the dogs have adopted the technology that we humans left behind? Honestly, that just isn't feasible. The theory says that there was a human apocalypse and that thousands of years later, dogs then evolved into the bipedal creatures that we see in the world. The fact of the matter is that our human technology wouldn't last that long. For instance, a printed circuit board like the ones that are used in your smart devices, it only has a lifespan of 15 to 20 years, which for us isn't that bad. But if
Yeah, that's true.
these dogs evolved many, many years after the human extinction, then those circuit boards would have degraded by the time they figured out what they were. The battery in laptops, same thing. Eventually it'll just go flat and never be able to recharge. Could they have been inspired by some human tech? Sure. But are they the same devices that the dogs evolved to use? No, definitely not. Speaking of evolution, let's actually dig deeper into that. As the post-apocalypse theory goes, Bluey and the gang are bipedal because they evolved to copy humans. Except humans are far from the only bipedal creatures out there. In fact, in the episode Flat Pack, we watch Bluey and Bingo play their way through the entire evolutionary chain of this world. Yep, that's right. All the evidence that we need to prove this one is just right there in a single episode. In it, they go from fish to frog to lizard to dinosaur, and eventually monkeys into cave dogs. And this right here, this is where they learn to be bipedal. From their previous form, the monkey. Notice that there's not a human in sight here. But then, why would a dog go bipedal in the first place? Well, this is actually just a natural progression for many advanced animals. Studies show that humans adopted walking on 2 feet as opposed to 4 because it uses 75% less energy. That right there is probably the reason why the Bluey verse walks upright. And that's not all. There's another major linchpin for debunking this piece of evidence, and it's not coming from the show. Instead, it's coming from Facebook. Yeah, apparently that website, it's still around. Honestly, I'm just as surprised as you are. Maybe this is what the Zuck had planned all along. Anyway, it's on Facebook that the Bluey team uploaded a short video that's only available in Australia. So I went undercover down under to see what this video is all about. And boy, does it tell us a lot. In it, Bluey's dad Bandit is given a report to his fellow archaeologists. Yeah, in case you didn't know, Bluey's dad is an archaeologist, which is funny because dogs dig for bones. Galaxy brain decisions by the people who wrote the show. That's why I love it. Anyway, in his report, he reveals his latest discovery.
Behold, the only known fossil of the first dog to walk upright. Our reconstruction suggests this species was a primitive but intelligent toolmaker.
Not only is this a huge reveal, it also gives us a timeline of events. He states that it's 4 million years old. But then wouldn't that just prove that humans were extinct years ago? No, and for one key reason, plate tectonics. Plate tectonics is the theory that the Earth's outermost layer, or lithosphere, is made up of several giant plates that rest on top of a partially molten layer of rock that slowly moves. Each year, these plates travel between 2 and 15 centimeters. What that means is that bit by bit, the continents we know today are slowly changing shape and will continue to change across time. Millions of years from now, they're going to look completely different. But herein lies our big reveal. You see, in Bluey's world, the continents are exactly the same as ours right now. In one of the best episodes of the series, Sleepy Time, Bingo has a dream where she travels through the stars, and we get to see Earth looking exactly the way that it looks right now. If this was indeed roughly 4 million years after the human apocalypse, the Earth should be looking completely different. In short, for as fun as the Bluey apocalypse theory is, the evidence just doesn't hold up to scrutiny. However, I see this internet theory and I raise it a new one. Not only can I definitively prove that this is indeed a separate universe, it's gonna change the way that you view our universe forever. In the episode Trades, we see Bandit's home office, and because Bandit's an archaeologist, there are lots of historic photos all around the room. But there's one in particular that stands out. This picture of a wild boar with 2 paw prints on it. This right here, that's a real image from our world. It's actually the first known cave painting thought to be made 45,500 years ago in Indonesia. Except Bandit's copy has itself one key difference. There are paw prints instead of handprints. This outright proves that the Blueyverse parallels our own, and the historic parallels don't stop there either. There's also an image of Egyptian hieroglyphics, but with dogs instead of people. And it's not just in Bandit's office either. These similarities go all the way down to their money. The Tooth Fairy leaves Bluey $5 in market, and we get a close look at the note. A corgi in pearls on the front. Now put that next to our image of the Australian dollar bill, and you see the similarities. The corgi represents Queen Elizabeth II, the Queen of State for Australia at the time the episode was made. So history is unfolding exactly the same as it is in our world. This is absolutely a parallel timeline. But not only does this make the most sense, it's also going to change the way that you view the Blueyverse forever. Here's why. I kind of glossed over this fact earlier, but now it's time to focus on it. In that Flat Pack episode, we saw that monkeys evolved into dogs. That seems crazy, right? Like, why? What evolutionary benefit made monkeys turn into dogs rather than humans? Someone better call Charles Dogwin. Am I right? Dogwin instead of Dark. Okay, yeah. What would cause monkeys to evolve into dogs? Well, for one, dogs have a better sense of smell. 10,000 times better, in fact. But they're also far better at hearing than we are. Not only are dogs able to hear up to 65 kilohertz, while humans can only hear up to 20, but dogs have twice the amount of hearing muscles, meaning that they're able to pinpoint the source of a sound far more accurately than monkeys. As if that wasn't enough, dogs also have reflexes that are 25% faster than humans, which means that they're practically watching us move in slow motion. So already you can start to see why these little guys are the goodest of boys and why humans would trust them so much. But then why would a monkey evolve to have these skills over human abilities? Surely humans are smarter than dogs, even these highly developed dogs, right? Well, not necessarily. Dogs are able to understand reasoning and logic similar to how a human toddler does. They're able to think and create new ideas. This is something called inferential reasoning, picking up on context clues to help create a decision. If you had 2 cups upside down with a treat in one and you pointed to the one with the treat in it, dogs will use that cue to turn over the cup that you pointed to. Chimps, meanwhile, will ignore that clue completely. And this is where it appears that dogs are more intelligent than monkeys. On top of that, dogs are also better able to read facial expressions than a monkey. So dogs aren't stupid. In fact, far from it. They're using inferential reasoning and emotional intelligence far more than our monkey predecessors. So really, in the end, the Bluey post-apocalypse theory is debunked. And what we're really seeing here in the show is a more perfect world, where monkeys didn't evolve into hairless apes, but instead evolved into the truly superior being, highly evolved dogs. Kind of makes you wonder whether our real world here is truly the darkest timeline.
Did you have an imaginary friend as a kid? Well, if you did, you'll know that they can seem as real as you or I, or even a Muppet. But if you let things go too far, you may end up like my dear friend Elmo here, stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Elmo's crayon is blue, just like the sky.
I'm colorblind, Elmo.
All right, guys, it's time to reveal the theory of the day. Are you ready? Okay, here I go. The theory of the day is...
Sesame Street! My friend Toothpicky here. Say hi, Toothpicky. Toothpicky says that the theory of the day is that Sesame Street has a dark secret, and that it all begins with Elmo wanting to bump off his friend's pet rock.
But I wanted to...
But that really? The root of the problem is more systematic. Toothpicky says that in the end, what Rocco represents is older generations failing to establish proper social norms and a troubling tendency of defaulting to victim blaming.
Wow, that was very insightful. He said all that?
Yup.
Now I'm curious. What else does Toothpicky have to say?
That I deserve a raise.
Your toothpick friend is stupid, Dan. Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that'll always let you have the last oatmeal raisin cookie. You know what's wild? My parents grew up with Sesame Street, and then I grew up with Sesame Street, and now my son Oliver can also grow up with Sesame Street, after his Paw Patrol phase, of course. This show started all the way back in 1969. It has run for an insane 52 seasons, a total of 4,626 episodes so far. Considering that the Theorist channels are at 931 episodes, I'd say we're doing a pretty good job of catching up. Anyway, with this show being such a prominent ingredient in the cultural stew and producing such a huge volume of content, you can bet that there's going to be plenty of unusual things that have happened inside the old neighborhood. Like the time the musician Smokey Robinson got groped by the letter U, or the time they decided to dunk on Fox News.
This show is way too clean. That is it. I am changing the channel. From now on, I am watching Fox News. Now there's a trashy news show.
Or that time they turned famous actor Robert De Niro into a cabbage.
Hey, look at me, I'm a cabbage. Good source of riboflavin.
But none of that quite compares to what surfaced earlier this year, when Twitter user @WumBooty tweeted a clip where Elmo flips out over his friend Zoe's pet rock, Rocco.
No, wait, Elmo. Rocco says that he wants the oatmeal raisin cookie. Rocco's a rock, Zoe. How is Rocco gonna eat that cookie, Zoe? Tell Elmo.
Watching as the usually kind and patient Elmo loses his cookies, literally and figuratively, over a rock made this clip go absolutely viral, totaling over 9 million views, with just about every major news publication from Vanity Fair to Polygon to NPR covering Elmo's explosive rage. Elmo's Twitter account got involved. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson responded. Heck, Sesame Street's TikTok is still leaning in. Everyone has had themselves a good old time and enjoyed their thousands of dollars in free advertising off this one clip. But then, of course, the internet decided to do what it does best. It dug deeper. Several cyber sleuths, or I suppose they could be Sesame Street superfans, found that this wasn't the only time where Elmo became just a wee bit upset by Rocco's shenanigans.
Oh, Rocco says that was a great workout.
It sure was, Rocco.
But Rocco didn't even move. He's a very special rock. Go on, say hello, Rocco. Yeah, Rocco says hello. Elmo didn't hear anything.
It would seem like everyone's favorite little red monster actually has himself a short fuse when it comes to this particular rock. And this caught my attention because, well, first off, it's just funny, but also because it seems so out of character for both the show and Elmo. Elmo is always portrayed as this incredibly kind character, and yet for some reason he has one trigger, and it's Rocco. He goes completely mask off and devolves into a fiery red ball of rage. But why? What is actually going on here? What's the backstory? Is there a backstory? Why is Elmo suddenly transforming from a cute, cuddly, metaphorical monster into a literal one? Are the memes finally coming true? Has Elmo finally had enough and is ready to watch it all burn? Well, I looked into it, loyal theorists, and the truth is actually much sadder than all of that. Elmo is far from the monster in these situations. There's a dark past hidden inside the history of Sesame Street's imaginary friends, and Elmo is the helpless victim that's currently getting steamrolled in the process. Let's start off with a bit of backstory here. Elmo's beef with Rocco actually goes back much further than you might initially expect. The earliest clip that surfaced after the initial viral tweet came all the way from 1999, when Zoe interrupts Elmo so that Rocco can be the one to say the number of the day.
Today's number is 12. Rocco says the number is 12. Elmo is supposed to say the number of the day, not Rocco.
Now, 3-year-old Zoe having an imaginary pet rock isn't in and of itself strange. These characters are children, after all. It's all typical behavior from a child with a growing imagination. And it's not like Elmo doesn't understand imaginary friends or pretend play either. In another episode with Rocco, Elmo has a stuffed toy that he's named Baby David. The two of them pretend to be astronauts.
Elmo's playing astronaut with Baby David. Hi, Baby David. I'm playing with Rocco. Hello, Rocco. Hey, Elmo, could you please watch Rocco for a minute? Rocco doesn't need Elmo to watch him. Rocco's just a rock. Well, rocks need watching too, Elmo. But Zoe...
Elmo obviously doesn't think that they're literally floating around in space. They're just playing astronaut. So clearly he can separate fantasy from reality. So then why does he have all this animosity towards a rock imaginary friend? Because here's the thing. After digging into the relationship between these two, this rivalry happens a lot. In episode 4064, Elmo, Zoe, and an elephant are tasked with doing the Rocco dance.
That's Mr. Rocco.
And Elmo doesn't understand why other characters insist that Rocco is such a good dancer.
I've always wanted to dance like Rocco.
But he's a rock!
Oh, but what a dancer! Such grace.
In episode 4424, Zoe insists that Rocco is getting married. She throws a huge event complete with guests and a cake, much to the confusion and frustration of Elmo.
Rocco has to choose a best man, see? Best man for a rock? This is the silliest thing Elmo's ever heard!
This pattern holds even going as far back as Rocco's first appearance in episode 3809, where Elmo straight up laughs in Zoe's face when she tries to introduce him.
Elmo, he's right here. See? He's my new best friend, Rocco. But Zoe, it's a rock.
Laughing in your friend's face when she introduces you to her new friend, imaginary or otherwise. Not exactly a very kind thing to do there, Elmo. Seems remarkably out of character for this gentle and sweet monster. But why? What is the actual backstory here? Well, from the creator's standpoint, this was always what they intended. Reading interviews with the writers that came out after the viral video, they intended for Elmo to always get frustrated by the whole Rocco situation. See, while the clips of Elmo getting frustrated are hilarious and show him being an absolute savage to this rock, the full episodes actually paint a much different picture. Yeah, in the episodes, Elmo always starts stubborn and insists that Rocco is just rock. But in basically every single situation, he either exhibits an enormous amount of patience or goes out of his way to befriend Rocco for Zoe's sake. For instance, that episode where Rocco is getting married, Elmo is honored when Rocco actually wants him to become the best man. In another episode, number 4077, while the group is having fun on a play date and they're swinging on a tire swing, Zoe insists that Rocco get a turn before Elmo. Despite him not wanting Rocco to get a turn because, you know, it's a rock, Elmo eventually relents and patiently waits his turn while Rocco goes first. And during the elephant dance session that I mentioned earlier, Elmo keeps dancing for Rocco despite being knocked around by the giant elephant and Rocco's constant criticism of Elmo's moves.
But that Rocco, the elephant was great, but Elmo's shooby-dooby-doos need work?
So, while Elmo does tend to lose his cool whenever Rocco gets brought into the picture, by the end of the episode, he generally learns and grows from the experience. But hold on, go back to that last example. Elmo is being physically and psychologically attacked here. He's being knocked around by an elephant and made fun of for his dance moves, all of it for the benefit of Rocco. In the cookie clip, Elmo's favorite cookie is being given away to an inanimate object. And on the tire swing, Elmo winds up having to share his turn because Rocco has gone before him, and suddenly the adult Gabby has run out of time.
Who's next?
Elmo is. Rocco's in line ahead of you. It's his turn. But Rocco is a rock.
You know, Elmo, Rocco is next in line.
Oh, okay, fine.
In each of these situations, and others that I'm not talking about, Zoe is always the one pulling some kind of cruel stunt on Elmo. Enough so that I have to ask, is she the true monster here? It'd be one thing if Zoe actually thought that Rocco was alive, but she doesn't. She understands what he is. In that infamous cookie clip, Zoe admits that Rocco isn't actually alive. He doesn't eat or breathe or grow.
It's true that Rocco really isn't alive like you and I are. He doesn't eat or breathe or grow, right?
Well, yeah.
In fact, the episode that introduces Rocco also features a song that specifically says that rocks aren't alive and cannot eat.
Is a rock alive? No, it can't grow like your brother. Is a rock alive? No, it can't eat like your mother.
Seems like a very clear message from the creators of the show. So Zoe understands that Rocco isn't alive. He isn't really saying all of these things to Elmo or wanting to eat his favorite type of cookie. So that would imply then that Zoe has to be the one being the real jerk here, right? I mean, if you go back and watch these interactions with that fact in mind, the tone drastically shifts. All of a sudden, this isn't a case of a girl wanting her imaginary friend to have the oatmeal raisin cookie that he prefers. It's depriving Elmo of the cookie that he wants. That sequence with the dancing elephant, it's not a girl passing along constructive criticism from her imaginary friend. It's just her having an excuse to say mean things to Elmo. The incident with the swing that we mentioned earlier, it's not a girl wanting to make sure that her imaginary friend gets his turn of the fun. It's about making Elmo wait before he can have fun. It's about control. Zoe uses Rocco as a means of controlling all of those around her. In fact, after Rocco gets to swing, Zoe then insists that Rocco keep swinging, further delaying Elmo's turn.
Okay, now it's Elmo's turn. Oh, what's that? Rocco says he's having such a good time. He wants to keep on swinging.
Not to mention that this entire situation starts because Zoe interrupts Elmo's playdate with Gabby and forces Rocco into it.
I mean, that's kind of true though. No
Somebody
kid.
else who wants to play too. Someone else? Yeah, Rocco! Sorry, Rox can't play.
And once he's in, Rocco once again steamrolls Elmo's plans.
So, what are we gonna do?
Let's say the alphabet. Wait a minute. What's that, Rocco? He says he'd rather jump. But Rocco's a rock. Rock can't jump. Elmo wants to see
Apparently they can. No cup like a...
the alphabet. But that wouldn't be fair to Rocco.
Zoe was the one who wanted
Uh-huh. Okay.
to jump here. Rocco was just the excuse. At another point in episode 4258, despite his protests, she asks Elmo to hold Rocco's hand, only to come back and claim that he's holding something else.
That's not Rocco's hand. That's his butt. Oh, no, it's gross.
Oh, watch it there, Zoe. That is a serious accusation you're making. You're fixing to get Elmo canceled. But in all seriousness, this is yet another example of her using Rocco to humiliate Elmo despite him ultimately
Yeah, that's kind of true though.
doing what she wants. I could go on and on here listing more and more examples, but the long and short of it is that Zoe's actions are just cruel. She's using Rocco as an excuse not just to get what she wants, but then to terrorize Elmo while getting what she wants, time and time again. So there we have it, right?
To restock my guest bathroom, I'm partnering with Secret to make my guests a whole holiday scent bar. They just launched their new limited edition holiday collection. Everyone always gets so excited to stay over because I always leave my bathroom stocked with products that can actually...
Seen these viral clips, Zoe is actually the evil monster lurking on Sesame Street, tormenting and gaslighting Elmo in an unchecked reign of terror, right? Well, not exactly. You see, while Zoe isn't exactly treating Elmo the best here, you have to remember, like Elmo, she's 3 years old, despite being 3 years old for the past 50 years. Either way, Zoe is a child, and just like we can't blame Elmo for his negative response to Rocco, it's not exactly fair to pin all this blame for the toxic relationship between the two on her behavior, especially when children at that age can't really understand complex topics like morality outside of just, this is right, this is wrong. No, the root problem here actually goes much deeper in Sesame Street, all the way down to the people that are supposed to be looking after these adorable little monsters. See, when it comes to this Rocco situation, it's the adults on Sesame Street, both the humans and the monsters, who aren't doing what
Okay. It's breaking out again, apparently. Okay. Don't know why it decides to always break out all. Yeah, that makes sense, honestly. Hold on a minute.
needs to be done for the best interests of either Elmo or Zoe. In every single situation that I've brought up here today, the adults are bending over backwards to make sure that Zoe is happy, walking the tightrope to indulge her fantasy.
I mean, no, it's still breaking up a little.
About Rocco despite knowing that he's just a rock. Now, let me be clear. Being a parent and engaging with the child's imaginary friend, great thing to do, totally fine. It is healthy to engage with the child's fantasies to a certain degree, respecting their imagination. But the adults on Sesame Street are actually taking this to a whole another level, a dangerous level, and it's doing more harm than good. Psychologist Dr. Samantha Rodham-Witten explains that while fostering a child's imagination is great parenting, imaginary friends can get out of hand.
Hang on, guys. Open Google Meet. open Google Meet.
BTS17Dodrina@gmail.com. BTS17Dodrina.
In certain situations, you cannot let the imaginary...
Hi. Oh.
Hey, do you know how long the package that you sent me is going to take to come to my house?
They said it could come next week at some time.
Okay. Did they say what day? Do you remember?
Not really.
Okay. So next week. Okay. I'll wait until next week.
friend turn into a way for the child to control the family because that teaches the kids the wrong lesson. Again, think of the very first clip that brought this whole situation to light. Rocco was not only given a cookie, but at first was given Elmo's favorite cookie over Elmo. And instead of really getting down on one knee and being firm with Zoe about being fair to Elmo, the adult in the clip just kind of lets it happen.
Can Elmo have an oatmeal raisin cookie instead, please?
Gee, Elmo, that was my last one.
Back when Zoe interrupts Elmo's playdate, the adult should have stepped in to defend Elmo, who was clearly uncomfortable saying no to Zoe.
Rocco!
Oh, Rocco.
And when Zoe and Elmo get into a shouting match because Rocco wants to jump instead of Elmo's choice of saying the alphabet, the adult should have been the one to defuse the situation. Instead, they come up with this.
Jump! No, alphabet! Jump! Alphabet!
Maybe we can jump and say the alphabet at the same time.
Well, we could do that.
See how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
Each time, Elmo's wants and needs are ignored by the people around him in order to appease a rock. The same thing happens with the swing later. Sure, the adult checks in to see whether Elmo's okay with Rocco going first.
Are you sure you're okay with this, Elmo?
Yeah, Elmo's next anyway, Gabby.
But when she suddenly has to go and Elmo doesn't get a full turn to himself, Elmo's patience isn't rewarded. He's the one left holding the bag. And these aren't the only examples of adult characters letting Zoe, through the form of Rocco, walk all over Elmo. In that dancing clip that we showed you earlier, the elephant calls Rocco your greatness and sir, even forcing Elmo to make sure that he calls him Mr. Rocco.
Maybe Zoe and Elmo should switch places. If it's okay with Rocco.
That's Mr. Rocco. The full wedding that's thrown for Rocco and his bride Petra really takes it as far as it can go. An expensive wedding cake is ordered, people dress up, they stress over being late for this rock. These adults aren't...
Yeah. But now imagine if it was a piece of grass.
Yeah, imagine.
That would be kind of funny though, but also kind of frustrating.
Yeah, true.
Enabling Zoe, letting her control so much of their lives and Sesame Street in an unhealthy way. And worse, they're letting her stress Elmo out, drive him insane, exasperate him to his breaking point. Remember, he's 3. He doesn't have the tools to understand why they're treating this rock in this way. A way that is, mind you, better than the way that they're treating him. But why? Why are these parents seemingly so scared to really put their foot down when it comes to Rocco? Well, it's sad to say, but this actually has its roots in entirely good intentions. And we can trace the reason why all the way back to the 1970s and a little character named Mr. Snuffleupagus. Yep, I'm serious. This conspiracy goes deep. See, Rocco isn't the first time that Sesame Street has addressed the idea of imaginary friends with an ongoing storyline. And let's just say that the way they did it before was problematic. Back in 1971, Sesame Street introduced Aloysius Snuffleupagus, a big, hairy, elephant-like monster who befriends Big Bird. It's cool, another new character for all the others on the show to interact with, right? Except there was a problem. Big Bird was the only person who ever saw Mr. Snuffleupagus, and whenever Big Bird tried to introduce him to any of the human characters, Mr. Snuffleupagus would be gone, disappeared into thin air or lumbering off screen just in time to miss everyone.
What a day. I finally get to meet all of Bird's friends.
Let's go get our stuff and we'll meet back here.
Gee, Bird, they They were just here.
Let's go. We're gonna use
Oh, they're all back. And I've got to tell Bird. I just saw everybody here. I saw them all.
It got to the point that, while the human characters would play along with Big Bird, they didn't believe him when he said that Mr. Snuffleupagus was a real thing.
At my nest, there's Mr. Snuffleupagus. He is?
Yes. Now?
Yes, now.
I'm not gonna waste my time. I'm gonna go see some imaginary animal. I want to get this finished. I want to go rest.
But I want to go meet Mrs. Snuffleupagus. The wood can wait.
So much so that it became a recurring joke that would run for 14 years. And then things changed. In the mid-1980s, Sesame Street's creators saw an episode of 60 Minutes highlighting the statistics involving child abuse and neglected home. The people working on Sesame Street felt that having their adult characters refuse to believe a 6-year-old Big Bird when he's trying to tell him something could make the children watching at home think that no adults would believe them if they came forward about something serious. And so finally, they decided to introduce Mr. Snuffleupagus to the rest of the cast. In November of 1985, Big Bird was finally vindicated as the adults came face to face with Snuffy and their jaws hit the floor.
I told you there was a Snuffleupagus, and last, you've seen him, and you gotta believe it, right? He's not imaginary, but you never believed me.
Enter Rocco. I suspect that in the aftermath of the Mr. Snuffleupagus drama, the creators of Sesame Street leaned hard, too hard, in the other direction. Now the lesson they seem to be passing along isn't just that grown-ups will believe you when you tell them things, but they'll go along with it so much that you can then use your imaginary friends to torture other kids, to control everyone around you. And none of this actually speaks to Elmo's state of mind. Sure, it's important to make sure that Zoe feels believed and validated, but what about Elmo, pointing out that Rocco is just a rock? Why aren't his accurate observations and ensuing confusion getting equally acknowledged? Instead, there's nothing. In yet another episode, Zoe ignores Elmo's protests over not wanting to watch Rocco.
Could you please watch Rocco for a minute? Rocco doesn't need Elmo to watch him. Rocco's just a rock. Rocks need watching too, Elmo. I'll be back in a minute.
But when Rocco suddenly disappears, guess who's the one left having to apologize? Elmo.
You didn't watch Rocco for me, and now he's gone. I'm sorry, Zoe.
It wasn't his fault. He never said he would watch Rocco. It was never his responsibility.
Gone? Well, he can't be gone, Elmo. I asked you to watch him.
Yeah, you did, but you never got an affirmative answer there, Zoe. Where is Elmo's right to autonomy in this situation? Nowhere.
Yeah, that's true. He never really gave you a clear answer.
Exactly. I never liked Zoe from Sesame Street for that reason. She was
Yeah.
way too bossy.
Yeah, Zoe was more of the bossy ones in Sesame Street.
Yeah, true.
Isn't it kinda your responsibility too, Zoe?
It has no place right now on Sesame Street. In every Rocco scene on the show that I watched, Elmo is consistently left last on the tire swing. He's the one forced by everyone around him to give up his cookie to appease a rock. Elmo is silenced. So, is it any wonder that he hates this thing after so many years?
Do you own a dog? If so, you'll know that they require constant care and attention to raise right, but they can be directed towards good or evil, something that the Paw Patrol are about to learn firsthand. But are they going to be all bark or no bite? Boop, boop.
You know, after a hard day of theorizing, it's good to just kick back and watch some Paw Patrol with my son. No deeper meanings to analyze, just a fun-loving show about puppies. So simple, so wholesome. Oh, hold on, are these puppies dead? Oh, it's happening again! Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, ruining your childhood since 2014. But you know what? I'm not content to just ruining your childhood. Oh, no. I've got my sights set on your children's childhood.
But we love film theory anyway.
Yeah, true.
Today we're breaking new ground by looking at shows that the kids are into these days. And by kids, I mean the 3-year-olds, specifically my son Oliver. Yep, it's another installment in My Kid Asked Me to Watch This, and now you have to suffer through the consequences. My 3-year-old is programming a 10 million subscriber YouTube channel without even realizing it. They just grow up so fast. Now, admittedly, I actually really like this show. The Paw Patrol is a team of 6 puppies led by a 10-year-old boy named Ryder. Each pup has a specific set of
I mean, hey, that is true.
skills based on emergency services. There's Chase the Flea.
Also, make sure to hit the bell icon so you get notified whenever we upload posts on Go Live and $10. Also, thank you for watching up until this point of this reaction? Well, live stream.
Let's continue this reaction.
Well, this live stream reaction because I'm broadcasting this live reaction on YouTube.
Police officer dog, Marshall the firefighter, Sky the
Well, that's true.
aviation dog, Rubble the construction pup, Zuma for water rescue, and Rocky for garbage collection. Every once in a while you have a special guest dog make an appearance like Everest the mountain pup or Liberty the city pup, but for like
Yeah, Everest is kind of. She's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, kinda sad that she isn't one of the main pups, honestly, but
Yeah, true. I like her, I like her design.
you know, I used to have, I guess my mom and dad got me a rubber, you know that construction logo pup Rubble?
Yeah.
Yeah, they actually got me this stuffed animal pup from Paw Patrol for Christmas a few years ago. I really wanted Everest, but they couldn't find Everest for some reason.
90% of episodes, this is our core team. And from there, each episode is pretty formulaic. They're hanging out in the city of Adventure Bay, there's some disaster like a windmill breaks or someone gets stuck in a cave. The Paw Patrol are called to action, they suit up, we hear this line.
Yeah, either something breaks.
Ready for action, riders, sir.
There's a mission brief, they slide down and load up into their specially designed pupmobiles. And through some combination of skills, the day is saved and a lesson is learned. Usually the lesson for me is that a shocking amount of problems can be solved using a winch.
I'll need you to use your winch. Chase, I'll need you and your winch. I need your winch. Get your winch out, Chase.
Okay.
The more you watch, the more it becomes clear that they had no idea what to do with some of these pups. Marshall with his fire rescue equipment, total MVP. Rubble with his construction tools, best boy. Zuma the water dog, meanwhile, yeah, you can sit this one out, buddy. And the next one. And the next one. You know what? Just pose for the lunchbox. To be honest, this is one of the more bearable kids shows out there because it's self-aware and uses the formula for some really solid jokes. Like here, when aliens come to visit Adventure Bay, a whole can of worms I feel like I should probably unpack at some point, but not today. It slides down the lookout tower and launches into its vehicle like the pups do in each and every episode. Only here, because the formula demands it, it also gets its name shouted out. It's a nice touch. Then you got stuff like this. When construction dog Rubble gets trapped, the only one available to drive his rig is Zuma.
Me? We need his truck to move the rest of the rocks once we get him out. Zuma, on the double.
And he just proceeds to fail. Zuma is just the butt of all jokes. Sure.
Yeah.
The whole thing is designed around some very obvious merchandising opportunities, but just look how cool this thing is. I gotta get one for Ollie. We gotta get one for Ollie. But hey, at least the show is aware of this fact.
Officially licensed Paw Patrol merchandise. This stuff sells like hotcakes.
It's funny because it's true. Isn't that right, Chase?
Woof, woof, that's right, Matthew.
So tasty. Now, the show already comes
Okay.
packaged with a lot of really obvious questions. How come the dogs are the only animals that can talk? Why doesn't Adventure Bay have a normal police force or fire department? When is Katie finally going to admit that she has a crush on Ryder? Admittedly, the last one might...
Mysteries that will probably not be discovered.
Yeah, true.
We can only hope.
My favorite pups of the show are Sky and Chase. And I think Chase, he has a crush on Sky, obviously, but yeah. Never wants to admit it.
That was my music teacher's name after that pup.
Yeah. Oh wow, that's cool.
Also, I always liked Sky and I always liked Everest.
Me too.
Mostly the female pups.
Just be me, but it is
Yeah,
so
true.
obvious that they would make a total power couple. Anyway, those questions aside, there was one moment that really stood out to me. A moment in season 1 that caught my attention as just a little bit weird, and it prompted me to dig deeper. And oh boy, did that start leading me down the darkest possible path for this universe. One that convinced me beyond a reasonable doubt that the Paw Patrol is dead. And not in just a, oh, this was a dream route or anything like that. I'm saying that within the canon of the show, Paw Patrol members have died and actively been replaced. So strap in, all you good pups, because this one is going to be a rocky ride. Ready for action, riders, sir, because Matt Pat is on the case. So the moment that got me to start digging deeper was from season 1, episode 9A,
Pups get a rubble.
where we learn about how Rubble the construction pup came to join the Paw Patrol. Now, this is actually one of the very few origin stories that we get for any of the pups. The only other one that we see is for Chase in the Paw Patrol movie, which I'll come back to later. In this
I think that was one of the only Paw Patrol movies that they released. Pretty
Yeah,
good.
true. It was, yeah.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
I haven't. It has honestly been a few months since I watched Paw Patrol.
Me too.
Seems like they are coming out with new episodes every time I watch Paw Patrol for some reason.
I think it's mostly reruns, I don't know. That's what I guess, since every time they would put on SpongeBob on Pluto TV, it would just be reruns. The show.
Yeah,
Sometimes even the same episode.
yeah. Reruns honestly kinda suck. Just make new episodes. Why reruns?
episode, we learned that Rubble
Yeah.
was actually the last member of the team to join. Basically, he was a stray puppy that needed to be saved. After the Paw Patrol rescues him, he winds up tagging along on their next mission to rescue a snowboarder trapped on a snowy mountain. When Ryder's shovel can't dig up the snow, baby Rubble steps in to save the day. That bravery winds up
I love how they used to be superheroes though of the town.
Yeah, true.
earning him a spot on the team. He receives his signature pup tag, hard hat, and construction vehicle. Cue the end credits. You're all good, pups. But hold on. Look closer at what happens in the episode. Ryder calls the pups to the lookout for the mission briefing, which he does all the time. But
He really does, honestly. That's true.
Yeah, true.
check out the big screen. Do you notice the pup tags along the bottom? Fire is Marshall, the star represents Chase, the
Yeah.
police force, recycling is Rocky, the propeller is Sky, the anchor is Zuma, but seriously, for as little as it's used, it might as well not be there. And of course, the wrench is for Rubble. But this is the first time that we've met Rubble. He was literally just saved by the team less than an hour ago, but he has a dog tag on the screen? A tag that he won't get until proving his worth at the end of the episode. His yellow segment is
Kinda little suspicious, but okay.
also already on Ryder's pup pad. How could it be there if they don't have a construction pup?
That's honestly true. How is it there? We are always gonna wonder that.
Yeah.
The only way that this makes sense is if there was a construction pup prior to Rubble. Now, you'd be forgiven for thinking that this is an animation error or something, but the evidence proving that there was a pup prior to Rubble really starts to add up once you look for it. At the end of the episode, we see Ryder give Rubble his construction helmet, but if you look closely at the helmet, it has scrapes on it as though it's been used. This isn't a brand new helmet for a brand new profession within the Paw Patrol. This helmet used to be the last construction pup's helmet. Rubble is also given the construction rig, which also has wear and tear on the front of the bulldozer portion. See that paint wearing away? Again, it's been used before. More noteworthy, though, is the fact that Rubble's too small for the vehicle. And Ryder explicitly says that he's gonna need to grow first before he can truly reach the wheel.
You have a little bit of growing to do before you can reach the steering wheel, but you'll get there.
All the other pups have vehicles that fit them perfectly. In fact, when other new pups join the Paw Patrol, like Everest, Tracker, and Liberty, their gear fits them perfectly the first time. So Ryder is clearly capable of making gear that fits Rubble when he's small, but he doesn't. Why? It must be some sort of hand-me-down. He already had the equipment from the last construction pup available. Why make a whole new vehicle if there's a perfectly good one sitting there waiting to be used? And again, if you think I'm looking too far into this, here is the definitive proof proof that I'm right. You'll notice that each vehicle is numbered. Ryder's ATV is 1 because he's the leader. Chase is 2, Marshall 3, Sky 4, Rocky 5, Rubble 6, and Zuma 7. But did you notice a problem with that? We know out of these pups that Rubble is the last to join the team because during his story we see all the rest of the team. And yet here's his pupmobile numbered 6 of 7. This is proof that there was a puppy before Rubble doing his job. The
I mean, that would make sense.
numbers do not lie. Zuma being number 7 proves it. Hey, would you look at that? Zuma is finally useful for something. The more you look, the more evidence you start to see of a former Paw Patrol. One that's no longer with us. One that no one speaks of. In Season 1, Episode 6B, Marshall attempts to break the record for the fastest fire pup. The implication here is that some dog held the record before him. But who? What other fire pups exist in this world? No municipality outside of Adventure Bay really seems to use anything similar to a Paw Patrol. In the Paw Patrol movie, for instance, we start off with a semi-truck driving off a bridge. When Captain Turbot mentions the Paw Patrol, the truck driver has no idea what he's talking about. He's in shock when a puppy comes to rescue him.
Call the police. Call the fire department. Call everybody.
You're in Adventure Bay. Here, we call the Paw Patrol.
You gotta call the who?
Same thing happens at nearby Adventure City when the news actively reports on the arrival of the pups.
Guardians, heroes, cute little dogs in adorable outfits. Whatever you call them, the Paw Patrol were here to save the city.
The idea of a team of rescue dogs just isn't a normalized thing in this universe, which suggests that there was a Marshall before Marshall to be the record-setting fire pup. In fact, take a look at the fastest fire pup trophy. It looks exactly like Marshall's fire engine, except Marshall doesn't have the record. Same vehicle, different pup, just like we saw with Rubble. But that's when you start to notice a really disturbing trend. All the pups are stray dogs. They're sad, they're scared, and they're alone. Then, and only then, are they enlisted by Ryder. We just covered Rubble's origin story where he's a baby puppy in danger, but the same actually holds true for Chase, the police dog. In fact, that's pretty much the main plot of the Paw Patrol movie. Chase's origin story is that he's a puppy that was abandoned on the street by his owners. He's almost hit by an oncoming car when suddenly he's rescued by Ryder and recruited onto the team.
I know. You saw me and took pity on me. Not at all. I chose you because you were the bravest pup I'd ever seen.
Later that same movie, Liberty is added to the team. Another stray dog that we see roaming the streets.
I have not seen Liberty in a long time on Paw Patrol.
Me neither.
I feel like Everest and Liberty and all those other pups come on once in a while, but not all the time.
Yeah, that's because they're like filler characters in a way.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. It would be nice if they were kind of main characters, honestly.
Yeah.
Begging for food.
How's the fruit business, Tony?
Well, it'd be better if I wasn't always giving you free fruit.
In fact, looking across pretty much every origin story that we have for new members onto the team, it's always the same. A lone dog with no connections and no home is enlisted to be a Paw Patrol member. Mountain Dog Everest, Jungle Dog Tracker, yep, they're the exact same way.
I can't wait to meet them. It gets kind of lonely sometimes. Are you going to stay around here? It would be great to have a friend nearby.
I'd like to make you an official member of the Paw Patrol.
Ryder collects abandoned, stray, and orphan dogs to add to his team. Why? Well, here's where it all starts to come together. The missing pups, the new additions to the team, they're all expendable. That's why it's a rescue team made of dogs. Ryder doesn't use the pups for rescues because they're best suited for the task. He's using them because the risk of losing a human life is too great, and having puppies perform the rescues means minimum human casualties. If a dog dies trying to save someone from a house fire or a rock slide, they can be replaced. We actually do see this in real life with avalanche rescue dogs. When an avalanche occurs, dogs are sent out to search for anyone buried under the snow to dig them out. Unfortunately, this means that in some cases, dogs might be hit by the avalanche and not survive. But this also means that in the process, they've spared the lives of any humans that would have attempted the rescue instead. And who could be more expendable than lone stray dogs with no home wandering the streets?
I chose you because you were the bravest pup I'd ever seen.
No, Ryder, be honest with yourself. You chose him because he was there, because he was unwanted and no one would miss him. In success, he becomes a top-tier rescuer. In failure, he's just another forgotten puppy that would have died on the streets anyway. And if he dies in the line of duty, well then he's celebrated as a fallen hero. He's the goodest of boys. And if there is any doubt that these dogs are in danger, just watch the show. Situations get perilous. In the movie alone, they're doing rescues at the top of collapsing buildings. A building, we're told, is the tallest one in the world. And in the show, sure, some episodes are like, hey, we just saved a frog, or hey, we brought your school lunch back to you in time. But sometimes you have stakes where dogs are hanging on by their teeth from out-of-control hot air balloons. So how does any of this benefit Ryder? Well, financially, the cost must be far less than employing several police officers, builders, and lifeguards. The dogs are given treats as their payment at the end of each mission. Meanwhile, Ryder gets to keep all the cash for himself. No wonder he always reminds people,
No job is too big, no pup is too small.
it's business. Of course they'll accept any job. The dogs really can't say no. And sure, Ryder attributes all the team's wealth to the merch, but government contracts tend to pay even better. This 10-year-old is literally part of the military-industrial complex. And now he's expanding the operation. He's finding dogs in new cities and setting up Paw Patrol outposts around the world.
The Paw Patrol will always look out for Adventure City.
In fact, the Paw Patrol movie shows characters from the TV show actively commenting on the fact that only now is the Paw Patrol becoming more well-known.
And to think I knew them before they were famous.
It's a billion-dollar business built on the backs of puppies. Pups that are expendable. Pups that are following in the paw prints of other pups that came before them. Ones that died in the line of duty and have been swept away by history. That is the dark secret of the Paw Patrol.
Whenever you need a hand, just yelp for help.
The ones who should really be yelping are the dogs. Yelp, Chase. Yelp, Rubble. In this series, you're the ones who are in the biggest trouble. You just don't realize it.
If you were an animal, what would you be? I think I've always felt a kinship to cats, or owls, or maybe even rabbits. No, I'd be a St. Bernard, let's be real. But in the world of Arthur, there may be more problems than solutions. It's enough to shake your fist at every day when you're walking down the street. I said, hey!
You know, looking back, Arthur might not be the wholesome PBS Kids cartoon that we all thought it was. I mean, he had an episode where everyone in school struggled with addiction to strange ingredients in the candy bars that they were eating. That's certainly concerning. And the whole world seems to operate under unspoken societal prejudices and hierarchies. I mean, did your 6-year-old self ever notice the fact that reptile characters are only ever shown to be doing jobs with heavy manual labor? It's true. It's almost enough to make you ball up your fist in anger. But there's one other
The rabbits, obviously. There's barely any rabbits in that show.
Yeah, that's true.
But they're with, like, you know, mixed families and mixed parents.
Yeah.
dark truth about this show that you might have missed back in preschool. Heck, that the adults watching this with their kids have still missed to this day. A dark truth that'll make your brain melt. And that, my friends, is what we're covering today. Hello, Internet! Welcome to Film Theory, the show that has an original point of view, just like everyone that you meet when you're walking down the street. Here's a question for you. What's the longest-running American cartoon? If you said The Simpsons, well, you probably also watched our King of the Hill episode, and you're right, congratulations. But you know what the second longest-running cartoon in America is? It's our buddy Arthur the Aardvark, who's been growing up while learning family-friendly lessons on our TV screens since 1996. This would be the part where I say only 90s kids will remember, but after 22 seasons, Arthur is still on the air. It's wild that my son can grow up watching the same shows that were on TV when I was a kid. And I'm glad that Arthur never left, because every kid ought to grow up in a world where we can learn to work and play and get along with each other. Arthur's also one of those shows that's great to go back to as an adult, because a lot of the jokes were totally put in there for the parents who had to watch whatever their kids were watching. And if you were a kid, well, you probably missed a lot of those references the first time around.
Sorry, Sue Ellen. It's a brother and sister race. Maybe there's a contest for lonely children after this. It's only children, DW. A lonely child is what you're gonna be when I sell you.
Holy jeez, Arthur! When you sell your sister?
What am I gonna do?
Run away. Join the circus. My mom knows a good plastic surgeon.
But there's another thing that you might have missed when watching Arthur as a kid. Something that's not so bright and cheery. It may be a wonderful kind of day, but we wouldn't be Film Theory if we weren't willing to ruin those wholesome childhood memories by exposing...
That's true, and that's Probably why we got film, dearie.
Yeah. It says I'm the only one here on this call when that's not true.
Wonder why. That doesn't make
Exactly.
sense.
The dark and tragic truths behind them. Now, if you're somehow one of the people who didn't grow up watching this PBS classic as a kid, Arthur is a show about an aardvark named Arthur and his sister DW as they go to school with their friends, including a rabbit named Buster, a monkey named Francine, a bulldog named Binky, a bear named the Brain. Everyone in the world is an animal, in case you missed the pattern. And, it's pretty much what you need to know. In typical kids show fashion, they learn life lessons, they shade each other.
You know how Polylocket works? That's where you keep your most special, important thing. I figured you'd want to put this in there.
No, thanks. I'm gonna put in a picture of my cat.
Oh.
And they burn the spelling of aardvark into your brain so completely that literal decades after you watch that one episode, you still hear it in your mind.
A-A-R-D-V-A-R-K.
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 No joke, it is still how I remember how to spell that word. Even as I'm typing this up, that song is playing constantly in the back of my brain. And that's what you get if you're the target demographic. But if you've ever stumbled across an episode of this show as someone a bit older after learning about the birds and the bees, you might be wondering how, in a society of animals, interspecies romance works. But joke's on you. The show is already one step ahead of you. Despite Arthur living in a society with many different types of animals, most families seem to be single species. Arthur and his sister DW are both aardvarks, and both of their parents are also aardvarks.
That's true.
Baxter is a rabbit with two rabbit parents. Francine is a monkey with two monkey parents, and so on and so forth. Now, we do know that interspecies romance isn't exactly taboo. For instance, back in 2019, Mr. Ratburn, who you might have already guessed is a rat, married an aardvark. And while that episode was apparently controversial enough to get it banned from television in Alabama, I'm gonna wager that the outrage was more about the fact that Mr. Ratburn was a man marrying another man, and not so much the fact that it was a rat marrying an aardvark. In this world, there's apparently nothing saying that an aardvark can't date or marry a rat, but when it comes to biology and reproduction, the Arthur universe seems to follow rules pretty similar to our own. If you're an aardvark looking to make some aardvark babies, you're gonna have to find yourself another aardvark. Or at least, that's the way it seems at first until you start digging deeper and you notice a strange trend. For instance, Molly and James McDonald. They're both rabbits, and while their father is a rabbit, their mom is a dog. Emily here is also a rabbit with a rabbit mother and a monkey father. And Carl is a rabbit who has an aardvark mother and no other parents that we can see. At first, these three examples might seem to disprove the idea that interspecies romance in the Arthur universe can't result in reproduction, but there's another thing that they all have in common. Molly, James, Emily, and Carl, the four characters who all have at least one parent that doesn't match their own species, are all rabbits. That doesn't seem like it can be a coincidence. In a world full of aardvarks, monkeys, bulldogs, and all other kinds of animal species, it just so happens that the kids who have parents of different species all are predominantly rabbits? When you see a pattern like that, it's the kind of thing that raises questions and demands answers. The first question I had is whether there might be some particular quirk of rabbit biology that might allow them to breed across species. It's not unheard of for there to be genetic hybrids, after all. For instance, you may have heard of mules. Well, they're the offspring of a horse and a donkey. There's also many varieties of zebroids, which result in crossbreeding zebras with other species. You know what you get when you cross a zebra and a horse? A zorse. What do you get when you cross a zebra and a donkey? A zonkey. And those aren't jokes. Those are actual real animals that can be created via crossbreeding. We assumed that Molly, James, Emily, and Carl were all rabbits based on their distinctive rabbit-like features, but could it be that they're the result of some kind of crossbreeding? Well, the science doesn't seem to support it. Rabbits aren't genetically similar enough to dogs, monkeys, or aardvarks to crossbreed with them. You could argue that the Arthur universe has different rules here. After all the animals are genetically similar enough to walk upright on 2 feet and speak to each other in English, but even if that were the case, it still doesn't explain why it's only rabbits that we see as the children in these interspecies relationships. However, there may indeed be a biological explanation for why it's always rabbits who seem to be raised by non-rabbit parents, and it gets into some territory that has some pretty troubling implications for the wider Arthur universe. One thing that we've been doing this whole time is operating under the assumption that all of these rabbit kids are the biological children of the parents that they live with, but as we all know, the real world is full of plenty of examples where parents and children aren't related by blood.
YouTube or TikTok?
I'm live on YouTube, but I'm also live on TikTok.
Okay, I'll go live. I'll go on your live on TikTok.
Okay.
Adoption exists, and there are plenty of kids with divorced parents living with their step-parents. In short, the way I see it, there are two key possibilities potentially causing this trend. One, divorce is more common in rabbit couples, or two, rabbit children are getting put up for adoption more frequently. So,
yeah. Would kind of honestly make sense.
Let's start with possibility one, divorce being common in rabbit couples. You see, this theory already seems plausible considering that divorce exists in Arthur's world. Buster Baxter has parents who are separated, also a rabbit couple. And there's a real-world explanation for this. You see, real-world rabbits don't tend to mate with only one partner for their entire lifetime. They're not monogamous. You could say that they are hopping from partner to partner, which, could produce some strain on a relationship when Bitsy Baxter over there is finding her husband Bo in the burrow with another woman. Except there's a problem with all this. Rabbits aren't alone in this category. Very few animal species are actually monogamous. It's mostly because it doesn't make sense from a genetic standpoint. Reproduction is all about ensuring the survival of your genes into the next generation. So you want as many chances at that as possible with a relatively wide array of mates. Monogamy is costly because it requires an individual to place their entire reproductive investment on the fitness of their one mate. It's putting all their eggs in one basket, literally. And in Arthur, we see all different animal types from aardvarks to bulldogs, goats, monkeys, moose, pigs, sheep. In all, I counted about 20 different species of animals shown to be functioning members of this society. And the fact is, most of these types of animals would be dealing with the same marital issues if monogamy was really a concern in this universe. So it doesn't seem like divorce here is causing the issue, which means it has to roll up to option 2, adoption. But why would so many bunny babies be put up for adoption in this universe? Well, I think it's actually the result of two contributing factors. You see, it's no secret that rabbits are notorious for their mating abilities. The phrase breeding like rabbits is a thing that exists for a good reason. Rabbits are able to become pregnant early in life, with some species able to get the ball rolling, so to speak, as early as 4 months of age. Add to that the fact that the female is able to get pregnant for all but 3 days per month, and you've got yourself a wide open window for babies. Now, that alone would be pretty unique in the animal kingdom, but there's another few factors that make rabbits incredible breeders. You see, a mother rabbit usually gives birth within 32 days of getting pregnant, and is ready to get pregnant again almost immediately after giving birth. So if they wanted, a mother rabbit could have a litter of babies almost every month. Nearly 12 in a year, which is incredible. Compare that to humans, where the gestational period is 266 days. But what makes rabbit breeding truly insane is that each of those litters can have anywhere between 1 and 14 babies, with the average being 6.
I honestly think this show is the longest show I have not seen in a few years, other than most other ones. I feel like this one I have not seen in the most time.
Compare that to other animals that we see in the Arthur universe. Aardvarks, 1 baby every 7 months. Monkeys, 1 baby every 2 years or so. Dogs, cats, foxes, bears, you name it, all of them have longer pregnancies and smaller litters. Which means that there's gonna be a lot more rabbits in this world than there are any other type of animal. And this is something that's actually confirmed by the show's character list. Looking through lists of all characters to have ever appeared in Arthur, you quickly see that there are nearly 220 unique rabbit characters that have shown up on the screen. The second most animal species is, as you'd expect, aardvarks, which clock in at around 170 unique characters. But that number is also inflated since our main character is himself an aardvark, so the show is going to revolve around him and his animal type. No other animal even comes close to touching the number of rabbit characters in this show. Now, it'd be tempting to say that all these newborn bunnies are resulting in the parents abandoning some of their kids, which is terrible and awful, and quite honestly would make a pretty darn good dark twist for for this episode on a show made for elementary school kids, but I don't think that's the case here. There isn't any scientific evidence suggesting that rabbit parents are any more negligent than parents of other species, and it also wouldn't explain why there are so many one-rabbit households. No, I think that there's something else at play here. You see, there is one basic bit of biology that separates rabbits from pretty much every other species that we see on the show: lifespan. Let's go back to that character frequency chart, shall we, and compare the lifespans of the most common species that we see in the Arthur universe. Aardvarks, 18 years in the wild, 23 in captivity. Brown bear, 20 to 25 years in the wild. Dogs, 10 to 15 years depending on the breed. Indoor cats, 13 to 17 years. Brown spider monkeys, 27 years in the wild, 33 in captivity. Rabbit, 1 to 2 years in the wild, 5 to 7 in captivity. To borrow from another kids program,
These things is not like the others.
in the world of Arthur, animal lifespans are probably going to be closer to what they would be in captivity, since Arthur and his classmates probably don't have to worry about things like natural predators. Plus, of course, I missed that episode where the brain has to learn to suppress his bear-like instincts to avoid devouring his classmates. But even when raised in captivity, rabbits have a much shorter lifespan than aardvarks, monkeys, dogs, and pretty much every other
That's kind of true.
species that we see appear in Arthur, with the only big exception being rats. But then again, this is a third-grade rat in Arthur. Dude already looks like he's ready to put a mortgage on a house, so I'd say he's aging pretty darn fast. Now, obviously, everything that we see in the Arthur universe isn't going to be one-to-one with real life. These animals can stand upright on two legs, to walk down the street, and can learn to work and play and get along with each other. These animals seem to age at a rate similar to humans. While real-life rabbits are capable of breeding at ages as young as 4 to 6 months, Buster is 8 years old and doesn't seem to have hit puberty yet. So if we adjust animal lifespans to human lifespans, like we see on the show, it would look a little something like this. Aardvarks, 97 years. Brown bear, 95 years. Dogs, 42 to 63 years, depending on the breed. Cats, 63 years. Monkeys, 139 years. Rabbits, 24 to 42. And this, my friends, explains the thing that sent us down this rabbit hole in the first place, which is why there are so many rabbits who seem to have guardians of other species or just live in single rabbit families. The simple fact is that even if rabbits are starting families at ages as young as 18, a significant portion of them won't live long enough to see their kids finish school. With rabbit lifespans so short, it's no wonder that so many rabbit kids are being raised by non-rabbits. The surviving rabbit parent probably remarries out of desire to have a partner to raise kids with them. If this is common in the Arthur universe, it wouldn't be all that weird for this sort of thing to happen, which would explain why it's never commented on by characters in the show. Arthur has been on the air since 1996, and he's just one of those cartoon characters that doesn't age. He's been an 8-year-old third grader for over 23 years, which I gotta say is probably a good thing. If the series actually followed the characters for 23 years, they might have already gotten to the point where Buster's classmates have to hold his funeral while everyone else is in the prime of their lives. That, of course, would be after the episode where Buster goes through his midlife crisis somewhere in the middle of high school. Looking at all the life expectancies for the animals in the Arthur universe, Arthur the Aardvark actually has a pretty decent shot of outliving most of his other classmates. Maybe he really should marry Francine the monkey if he's looking for someone to spend his golden years with. Oh wait, he actually does. This is something that is confirmed in the show. They do wind up together, and strangely have a conversation about Buster.
There's Buster Baxter. Whatever happened to him?
Whatever happened to Buster? Strange how those best friends don't wind up together in the end. And notice how Arthur just doesn't respond in this moment. He just stares sadly off into the distance. It's almost like he had a dear old friend who died a bit too early. And that, my friends, is my feel-good episode on the world of Arthur. Happy childhoods.
Have you ever seen a UFO? Well,
Okay.
millions of people every year see things they can't quite explain. They turn to
I mean, yeah, people do sometimes see stuff that they can't explain.
professionals like Mystery Incorporated for answers. But what if the question comes from a pup named Scooby-Doo? Evented.
Okay, I've seen Scooby-Doo, but I haven't watched Scooby-Doo, if that makes sense.
And now, gang, we'll find out who was really behind the hauntings.
I think I watched, like, maybe like one episode. Or two, or three. Scooby-Doo seems like a nice show.
YouTube headquarters.
Markiplier?
Wait, gang, I think this is another mask.
Lele Pons?
Yeah, no, big no there. Let me rip this off.
PewDiePie?
Hold on.
Mr. Beast?
Jinkies, how many of these things are there? All right, I think this is the last one. The real person behind the hauntings at YouTube HQ was...
YouTube sensation Will Smith?
Oh, that's hot.
Liked, commented, and imprisoned. Wait, where's that laughter coming from? Scooby-Dooby-Doo. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Film Theory, the show inspired by Velma's incredible ability to rationalize any supernatural event.
The simple fact is, monsters are nothing more than crooks in masks, usually unscrupulous real estate developers.
So, just over a year ago, I did my first episode on Scooby-Doo, in which I tried to calculate Shaggy's power level and whether Ultra Instinct Shaggy was actually some sort of Super Saiyan. Remember that meme that lasted like, a week? Good times. Anyway, in my research...
Yeah, memes don't really last long.
For that episode, I watched an entire generation's worth of new Scooby-Doo episodes. Not just the original Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Not just What's New Scooby-Doo, or heck, not even just the new Scooby-Doo movies, but all of the Scooby-Doo generations. Let me reiterate that, all the generations. And that, my friends, is no small feat. Scooby-Doo is a 14-series, 36-movie canon spreading 51 years. Matt-Pat's starting to lose his mind. And boy, was that crash course through half a century's worth of cartoon canon a wake-up call for me. For years, I just assumed that Shaggy, Scooby, and the gang were living out the same Sisyphean nightmare all that time. Driving from town to town in a barely functional van, forced to solve spooky mysteries that always amounts to some guy in a really convincing rubber mask with way too much special effects technology on his hands. And what does the gang get for all their hard work? Nothing. Maybe a sandwich if they're lucky. Well, except for that one time that Scooby got himself a chest full of Confederate money. Fred and Daphne are in a will-they-won't-they relationship. Shaggy's romantic interests fluctuate between Velma and Scooby as dog. Insert wacky guest star here.
Sorry, Batman, they run off sometimes.
Flight is a natural response to the unknown. Can we help you kids out?
And I wasn't entirely wrong, but as I was binging through this franchise, I was shocked to learn that across those 51 years, those 14 series, and those 36 spin-off movies, that there's actually a complex Scooby-Doo lore here. No joke, long before the MCU, there was the SDU. Might be easy to assume that each iteration of Scooby-Doo is completely separate from all the ones that came before it, because, it's just a cartoon, right? Who's putting in that much effort? But in reality, the teams behind these shows appear to be taking a lot of care with the long history of this series. So much so that the entire franchise, movies and all, can basically be boiled down into two self-consistent timelines. Well, 2.5 if we're being completely accurate. At least, that's my theory today anyway. So with a new film entry coming out later this week looking to set up a prequel story that I guarantee will burn this theory to the ground.
I guess our new movie is an origin story.
Let me at least get the video out now before it completely throws off all my research. So before we start throwing things into timelines, let me lay out the major pieces. First and most importantly, let's get the big one out of the way. Scooby-Doo is an alien, period, end of sentence. That is 100% canonical fact that isn't me even overreaching in the slightest. In the recent series Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, which is shockingly lore-heavy for a Scooby show, we learn about the Anunnaki, an ancient godlike alien race that comes to Earth every few thousand years. The Anunnaki have no physical forms, so they're forced to possess animal bodies.
The Anunnaki have a great history of helping humans, but we have no physical form and must inhabit animals. This is why some animals, our descendants, can talk and others cannot.
So if we happen to know any animals in this series that are capable of talking or being understood by humans, well, we can reasonably assume that that individual is an alien descendant. That's why Scooby-Doo can talk. He's got himself dem alien genes.
The heart is us. It's always been us.
It also explains one of his iconic catchphrases.
Wrong? Blair.
So that's big reveal number 1 about this series' lore, and we are just getting started. The Mystery Incorporated series also introduces us to the canonized concept of a Scooby multiverse. In the final episode of this particularly interesting run, Scooby and his friends help defeat an evil Anunnaki who's been trapped on Earth. To try and escape, this force has been assembling and manipulating mystery teams throughout the ages to try and get released, with the Scooby Gang being his most recent group of kids. Once this evil entity gets destroyed, however, Scooby's entire world gets destroyed along with it, launching the main mystery gang into a brand new existence. Their same hometown of Crystal Cove, but with everything slightly different. Shaggy is no longer a slacker, but rather a top chef. Velma is a champion academic, but perhaps most shocking of all, Fred and Daphne are engaged.
I know why everything's different. We destroyed the entity, and by destroying it, it was as if it never existed. By destroying the evil entity, we created an entirely different timeline.
Our actions created a better world where we all have normal and productive lives.
So that, off the bat, gets us into 2 separate timelines. Same Scooby Gang, carried out across 2 branches of the multiverse. The next big issue that we need to talk about are the monsters themselves. The vast majority of the shows recycled the same twist. There were no ghosts. Man was the real monster all along.
And I would have gotten away with it too
if it wasn't female kids.
That was the formula for decades. For the TV show, at least. And yet, for some strange reason, most of the movies, like 1987 Scooby-Doo Meets the Boo Brothers, and most of the direct-to-video Scooby-Doo movies, like Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, all have the gang encountering real-life supernatural creatures. A very select few of the series had this as well, like the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, the Scooby and Scrappy Show, and Mystery Incorporated, where again, the ghosts and boogeymen are actually real supernatural creatures. When I first encountered these outliers, I was just happy to write them off as taking place in a totally different universe. In one universe, ghosts are fake. The mystery gang always pulls off a mask and everyone's happy. In the other, ghosts are a real threat, and we should all be terrified by the retribution that the undead shall deliver unto us. Here's where things get weird, though. In many of the Ghosts Are Real iterations, Shaggy wears a red shirt. Red. Different shirt, different universe, obviously. Okay, now, that might seem like an exaggeration, and normally it would be, but there's actually more to Shaggy's wardrobe changes than meets the eye. You see, in the 2001 direct-to-DVD movie...
Pretty good reactions so far.
Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase, the Scooby Gang goes into a Scooby-based video game world complete with digital doppelgangers. And what does Shaggy's digital form look like? Red shirt. Big deal, right? It's just a physical color swap to differentiate him from the real Shaggy. Except that's not the case. Look closer and you start to see that the shirt isn't the only thing different about Shaggy's digital form. His eyes are also different. And not just different, they're the exact match for how they were drawn during those 80s era Scrappy-centric Scooby-Doo episodes. So, could all of the ghosts and ghoulies from Scooby-Doo and the 13 Ghosts and Scooby and the Scrappy Show episodes have taken place in a digital simulation? To know for sure, we have to start putting this whole thing together. The first thing that happens chronologically is the birth of Scooby-Doo in 1969. This is according to a fake document that Velma uses to claim Scooby as a service dog in the movie Legend of the Phantasaur, which, funny enough, was the same movie where Ultra Instinct Shaggy got his origins. So, across the board, probably the single most important piece of Scooby-Doo related media to ever come out in half a century. I can't tell if I'm exaggerating that or not. The rest of the gang was probably born around the same time. Because of Scooby's Anunnaki heritage, he actually ages at a speed closer to that of a normal human. So roughly 10 years after being born, he's
Okay.
still very much a puppy for the events of the first series chronologically and the 9th overall series in the franchise to be launched, a pup named Scooby-Doo, along with the movie that was set in the same time period, The Mystery Map. In the first episode of the series, we see the gang already together and solving mysteries in their hometown of Coolsville, USA, under the name the Scooby-Doo Detective Agency. This series directly leads into the original series, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You?, and its many follow-ups, the new Scooby-Doo movies, where they hang out with celebrities, before eventually eventually winding up with the Scooby-Doo show. And with that, we come to the darkest period, Scrappy-Doo. Scooby's nephew, who was deemed by censors as, quote, too independent, which apparently is a bad thing to teach kids. Well, at the time, he was popular enough to help prevent the Scooby franchise from being canceled. Since then, he's become the single most hated television sidekick of all time. Even the creators of Scooby-Doo themselves will only allow references to him insofar as they make fun of how bad he was. Unlike the previous incarnations of the series, this new iteration focuses on dealing with real monsters and real supernatural threats, rather than your typical villain hiding under a mask. But how, in a series that's only focused on real-life crooks, did supernatural forces suddenly appear out of nowhere in this world? Clearly, there had to have been something to prompt this change in the world from the classic Scooby's technological terror into the modern Scooby's paranormal fears. The answer actually lies in a crossover episode, one that would happen 3 decades after Scrappy was first introduced. A crossover of supernatural proportions because it's crossing over with the show Supernatural. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Supernatural, it's about, you guessed it, the supernatural and 2 paranormal hunters. In the season 13 episode Scooby Natural, something incredible happens for both the Supernatural and Scooby-Doo universes when the two collide. Brothers Sam and Dean from Supernatural get sucked into the world of Scooby-Doo along with their angel friend Cass. But here's where things get really crazy. You see, they're not just sucked into the world of Scooby-Doo, they're sucked into a real episode of the show. Specifically, the 16th episode ever, titled A Night of Fright is No Delight, which, when it first aired, just ended with the typical bad guy in a mask reveal. However, what we're shown in this crossover is that the Supernatural guys accidentally opened the Scooby-Doo universe up to real paranormal powers. Them entering the TV show has allowed a ghost in, resulting in the 2 hunters chasing an actual ghost through an episode where there wasn't a ghost to begin with. Meanwhile, the Mystery Gang stays oblivious to the whole thing. At the end of the episode, the Winchester brothers manage to convince the Scooby Gang that it's all been elaborate tricks and gadgetry. Before that, though, the Mystery Gang does get itself a little wake-up call from Cass.
So, everything you told me, it's true? Werewolves? Vampires? Demons? I thought I was blind without my glasses, but I was just blind.
That means that Scooby's supernatural elements may have been brought into its universe by the Supernatural team when they chased a ghost into the cartoon. That explains how later series in the timeline, with the Scrappy-Doo series and the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo that follows it, we have supernatural beings suddenly present out of nowhere in the canon. What it doesn't explain away, though, is Velma and Fred not knowing who Scrappy is.
Well, I guess the gang's all here.
Except Scrappy.
What's a Scrappy?
Sure, they didn't share that many episodes together, but that first season that Scrappy appeared in did have all the gang together for multiple episodes. It also had really terrible animation for all those episodes. I mean, look at Shaggy. Looks like he was put through the rack. Must have been a gas leak season, or, as we previously established, it had to have been in the video game simulation. For as crazy as it sounds, it actually makes sense. The first season with Scrappy literally sees the gang week over week going to Britain, to Egyptian-inspired locales, to California, New York, even places as far-flung as Greece, which, wouldn't you know it, are exactly the types of exotic levels that we see the gang flashing through as we're trapped in the video game sim from Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase. So look on the plus side, all you Scrappy haters. A full one of his seasons doesn't even count because it all took place in a computerized simulation. That season, along with at least 3 movies, Scooby-Doo meets the Boo Brothers,
You guys are ghost exterminators!
Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School, and Scooby-Doo and the Reluctant Werewolf totally don't count. At this point, then, we have to rewind our timeline back, all the way back to the beginning. The very beginning for our second alternate universe, the Mystery Incorporated universe. You see, televisions in the world of Mystery Incorporated still use a 4:3 standard broadcasting ratio, which started going out of style in the mid-90s, and would have been startlingly obsolete by the time Mystery Inc. actually aired in 2010. That means that this show wasn't meant to take place concurrently with the show's airing, but rather sometime back in the 80s and 90s. Because the gang is back in high school again, it's most likely to take place in the 80s. Except this go around, all the mysteries from the other timeline have already been solved. The first episode of the series starts with Velma giving a tour of the Haunted Museum, and it's a who's who filled with nods to all the classic monsters from Scooby-Doo, Where Are You?
And who could forget the terrifying stylings of Space Kook? Not me. They all turned out to be fakes.
That's not all, though. We see the Luna Ghost from the Scooby-Doo live-action film, as well as references to Scrappy-Doo, and never talking about him again.
We all promised each other that we would never speak of him. Not ever.
So then, why wouldn't this be connected somehow to our main timeline? Well, because A, they don't believe in real ghosts, when in the main timeline by this point they've seen plenty of those. B, they're born and raised in a new town. This one's town is Crystal Cove as opposed to Coolsville, USA. And C, they don't recognize Vincent Van Ghoul, the wizard who served as their guide throughout the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo and its spin-off movie, The Curse of the 13th Ghost. It's a paradox that can only be solved via a separate timeline. At the end of the series, as I talked about earlier, the team is sent to a new timeline where the supernatural entity never existed in the first place. When Fred arrives in this new world, upon realizing there's no dark entity or the effects that it left, he declares that it's a
world without mysteries.
Of course, this is wrong, but what it does mean is that this is a world without paranormal activity, which leads directly into the events of Be Cool Scooby-Doo, which sees our gang in their new timeline. We're told that they just got out of high school, which continues the story of them being in high school in Mystery Incorporated, and true to what Fred said about a world without mystery, this new series moves away from solving crimes and more into the territory of Phineas and Ferb, complete with increased emphasis on comedy and wacky inventions. And that's the latest point in the Scoobyverse as of now. Given the show's tendency to jump around its own timeline, there's no guarantee the next batch of Scooby episodes and movies will even take place in the future of the timeline. Maybe they'll track back to when the gang was in a more grounded seeming reality. But for once, we can roughly see the way this entire timeline links together. One mystery gang we've watched grow up since they were kids, a second mystery gang that have themselves crossed dimensions into a brand new timeline, and a third that's entirely digital. And now with that out of the way, tune in next week when I explain how Fred and Daphne still haven't become an official couple after all these years. Actually, that's not an episode at all. I just said it as a joke. The next episode is absolutely Rick and Morty. Anyway, until then, remember, it's all just a theory. A film.
Hey, that's Phil.
Theory. And cut.
Also, it has been a few years since I seen Phineas and Ferb. Okay, this will be the end of the reaction.
Oh, come on, make it longer.
In SML, we've seen many.
Okay, so apparently that's the end of the reaction to that 1 hour 21 minute film theory video. So, if you all like the reaction, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Tell us what you want us to react next. And let us know if you like the reaction or not. Until next time, they done Bulldoze, and we are out.
Later. You didn't even say Alexa.
I'm not quite sure. Sorry, I'm having trouble understanding right now. Please try a little later.